Hello YouTubers, hello world. What follows is called a personal impact statement, and these are read out throughout the land in many different courts. The reason being, the personal impact statement is read to the court and to the perpetrator of the crime to give them a sense of what their actions have done to the victim. The following personal impact statement is Jeremy Vine's, and it is with his full consent, knowledge and approval that I play you this impact statement now. Please watch the whole video if you can, because it will give you a sense of why Alex Belfield was jailed on this particular count. Thank you for your likes, your subscriptions, but most of all your indulgence. This is Jeremy Vine's personal impact statement, and I'll see you in the next video.
This is a victim impact statement by Jeremy Vine for the court in the trial of Alex Belfield, convicted of stalking me. There's no doubt in my mind that if this court had not stopped Belfield, someone would have died. It's quite possible that a Belfield follower would have physically attacked one of the 8 victims in the case. I'm convinced Belfield wanted that. It's why he broadcast my home address to 500,000 people on YouTube, having falsely claimed on more than 100 occasions that I stole £1,000 from a friend's memorial service. His lies made his followers hate me, and I'm sure this odious, devious criminal would have quietly celebrated if one of them had come to my home and thrown acid in the face of my teenage daughter. If his knuckle-dragging disciples are stupid enough to believe his claim that he once worked for Radio 2, they would certainly be capable of that. So a person could have been killed, but they could also have taken their own life. We heard Bernie Keith tell how he tried to hang himself with a nylon cord. We heard how the scan of Ben Hewis's unborn baby was copied and used in a sinister message to his wife. We heard how Belfield rang the elderly mother of Philip Dehaney to feign concern about him. We heard how Liz, Rosina, Helen and Stephanie in Leeds were viciously targeted by Belfield for over a decade. In Rosina's case, being sent more than 5,000 emails, alternately insulting her and then offering to take her shopping for lingerie. All 4 women in Leeds were driven to distraction. He was guilty in their cases, by the way, as guilty as sin. But the court must rule on the verdicts it has reached. In the witness box, I described Belfield as the Jimmy Savile of trolling. I repeat that now. I was seeking to emphasize my belief that in his chosen field of web-based harassment and stalking, Belfield is the most prolific offender the British courts will ever deal with. Broadcasters like me know about trolls. We get plenty of abrasive messages, and in 99.9% of cases we let them go. But ordinary trolls don't compare to this Olympic-level stalker. He turned criminal harassment into a cottage industry. The Victorians had open sewers. We have the Voice of Reason YouTube channel. Every morning I would dread his latest upload, calling me a cunt, raging that I was a thief, taking phone calls from members of the public who he'd brainwashed into thinking I was a criminal. Belfield repeatedly requested money so he could sue Jeremy Vine and the BBC. According to him, the criminal proceedings against him in Nottingham were actually a lawsuit he'd taken against us. His hard-up followers sent him money to fight the case and must have been baffled when he kept showing up on holiday in Las Vegas. But then Belfield lives a life of lies. He says his YouTube channel made him rich during lockdown, and then mentions that he was unemployed during lockdown on £86 a week. The authorities should investigate him for benefit fraud. Part of the problem with this case is that the convicted criminal at the centre of it simply won't accept the rules that others have to live by. When eventually Belfield came to court, he had no lawyer and did not even call a single defence witness. So much for his invitation to send, quotes, send money so we can have our day in court. Meanwhile, the Belfield videos, most of which are still online, attracted screeds of abusive messages directed at me and his other victims. Thousands of those messages were on his YouTube page, but many came to me direct on social media. I had between 5,000 and 10,000 angry members of the public demanding, "Where is the £1,000, Jeremy?" In reality, I had contributed to the John Myers Memorial Service, not taken money from it, but I never wanted to say that. Instead, I took the abuse and waited for the police and the courts to act. And in that respect, I would commend DC Janet Percival and all her colleagues at Notts Police for their exemplary work on behalf of the victims. Her diligence and determination were tempered by kindness to those who had suffered. She is a credit to the police force, and I will always be grateful. Belfield knew what he was doing, and he had no shame. The man needs locking up. A suspended sentence is not punishment. The 8 victims have seen his lack of remorse here in court. We've seen his disrespect for us and for the whole process. Before the trial, Belfield broadcast childish videos praising the judge by name, a naked attempt to ingratiate himself. In court, he smirked through our evidence, clucking and chuckling like Stephen King's clown. While cross-examining me, he asked the question, "Do you know what the definition of a cunt is?" He kept the entire court waiting when the verdict was set to be delivered, apparently sitting in Greg's without a care in the world. He finally wandered in, wearing an untucked Bermuda shirt and stained canvas shorts. The lurid shirt alone showed his narcissism, arrogance, and utter contempt for the work the jury have done. All of this increased the impact on the victims. Without jail, there's no punishment. Without jail, he will start up again tomorrow. Punishment is relevant to victim impact. Without proper punishment, we are all made victims a second time. Belfield did one other thing in this trial which should be noted. His first action was to lie to the judge. He told Mr. Justice Saini he was a journalist, but throughout his career he has publicly stated, "I am not a journalist." The deception led the judge to allow Belfield to broadcast video reports of his own trial. Belfield put those nightly reports behind a paywall. I watched them with disgust. When, in criminal justice history, has a defendant ever been allowed to report on his own trial? Those so-called reports were just a way of freshly targeting his victims. He read out our evidence using subtle changes of tone and glaring omissions to undermine us. He suggested that our testimonies had collapsed under his cross-examination, when actually it was his note-taking that had collapsed. He failed to write down anything which did not suit his narrative. He told his followers each night, "I am reading from official court transcripts," when he was actually reading from his own biased and patchy notes. There are protections for victims in court cases like this. So how was he able to bamboozle the judge into allowing him to drive a coach and horses through them? If this wasn't contempt of court, then what is? I'm scared of Belfield. His stalking has caused me sleepless nights. He placed me and my family at risk. He protests he never went near me in person. He knows he never needed to. Like all cowards, he operates by proxy, by encouraging violence and anger in others. When he broadcast my home address, it was immediately rebroadcast by Lewis Stead, a man who had praised the fatal stabbing of David Amis MP. As a consequence, I had a late night home visit from 2 local policemen to warn me. My youngest daughter, then 13, cried when I told her to be alert when leaving the house. Imagine having to tell your young teenager that. And imagine a tribute to your late father on Facebook being defaced with the comment, "What would your dad have said if he knew his son was a thieving tow rag?" When I chased up the person responsible, he said Alex Belfield had told him that I stole money from a memorial service. The impact of Belfield's behaviour is profound. Make no mistake, the criminal stalker you see in this room today remains a danger. If Belfield goes straight from court to a jail cell, certainly there are risks. He will probably start stalking the judge as soon as he is released. But he will at least be out of action and have time to reconsider the terrible path he's taken. If, on the other hand, he walks free from court, Belfield will portray his suspended sentence as a victory and go back to his offending tomorrow. The victims showed courage in this case. Now I beg the court to do the same.